Oh, yeah. Well, how about pressing the right button, Terito? Once again, talo for Terito.
Yeah, can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yep. Hi. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Terito? I have introduced you, but just in case I missed something very, very important that you want to inform our people about, our listeners, our viewers.
I'm a Cook Island Rotuman, born and raised in New Zealand. I'm a Methodist, and I'm embarrassed and I'm concerned about what's happening at the moment with our home care workers that work for LifeWise. And so, because all I know, the only faith community that I've been raised in and know is Methodism, and being a Methodist here in Auckland Central, I feel the need to be vocal and to make those in my own networks, people around me, aware of what's happening, because I somehow think that not very many people are aware. And I think um, maybe because we're in holiday mode, we're a little bit comfortable and not really involved in and thinking about what's happening beyond our own little circles. So this is a good time to actually snap out of that holiday mode
Mm.
and be aware of the situation, because it would be a horrible thing to have to go through. And these workers, mainly women, have had to face this throughout this past festive season.
Mm.
So yeah.
So, yeah, what made you wanted to go and support these workers, Teresa? Because I know last Wednesday, that's their seventh day of strike, or
Yeah.
yeah, of picketing. Yeah. What are some of the stories? I mean, but what really made you wanted to go and support these workers, these LifeWise workers, Teresa?
I think naturally, I'd have an affinity with any home care workers, because my own family, over past recent years, 3 years, we've, although they're not LifeWise workers, we've had to rely on the support and the assistance of home care workers for my nana. My grandmother is 85 years old, Rotuman, strong Rotuman woman who's been serving our community, our Rotuman and our Methodist community here in Auckland for decades. And, now that she's a lot more frail, we as a family have had to, call on and we're really grateful for the support of home care workers. And although we are not in Auckland Central, so we're out West Auckland, we have a different organisation that we need support from. We appreciate the work that all home care workers do, because it's not easy. Over the lockdowns period, we ended up having our immediate family had to stop the home care workers and had to take on that role amongst us. So my aunt, my mum, my cousin and myself. And that's not easy work. That's the kind of work that you actually do. You don't do for money, you do it for love.
Mm.
And these women, namely women, I think there may be a few men, but think that these people who are doing this kind of work that's hard enough as it is, are having to deal with reduced hours and all these different things. And I hear recently, threatening being locked out of work now because of their negotiations. Their employment negotiations haven't been good. That's an added stress. And I already, you know that these people in this kind of line of work, they don't have it easy anyway, but this added pressure and added stress is not good enough. And then to think that an organization that belongs to and that's a part of a church, a faith community that happens to be my own church, that's a huge concern. That's something that you can't just look the other way on. Luckily, Fala, we are friends on social media, so I see your posts, and I can't just ignore it or silence it or mute it and then carry on scrolling up. I am called to to speak out and do something and share what's happening so that other people are aware, and so that we can question and hold to account, our church, who call themselves, a faith community that looks out for the most vulnerable and is, committed to empowering people, especially those in greatest need. All of those kinds of things. What kind of theological principles would we have if we just turned the other way? So I can't turn. And I know neither can you. That's our calling. That's part of our ministry. Even though we're not ordained in ministry, this is part of our ministry to support and empower. And that's why we can't just keep quiet about this. We have to make sure that people know and make sure that we challenge what's happening so that hopefully things can get better and get better fast.
For workers. I mean, I'm sure our listeners who are listening tonight, they are really, maybe some of them are not aware, but maybe some are aware that LifeWise is very active when it comes to addressing homelessness. Am I right? Yeah, they do that yearly reach out thingy that sponsors.
Yeah, that's right. The big sleep out. And like in recent years, they've moved into different types of social services like early childhood education care, and youth housing and all these different things. And the crux of it all is looking after people and looking after people in our society who need the most support and need the most help. Now, ironically, it's a bit of a double standard when your own workers, the people that you're employing, when you employ people or when you have a job, you think your mentality is that you are coming out of, that risk of being in poverty and facing things like homelessness or, all those factors, worrying about food, about, all of those kinds of things, especially during Christmas. To think that there were workers, people that are employed by an organisation,
a Christian organization.
A Christian organization that's supposed to be helping people, to think that their own employees were having to look for food parcels and were worried about paying their own rent and mortgages during the festive season. This is not even lockdown. This is during festive season. That's horrible.
I know. I mean, and all what the workers want is the guaranteed hours, because like what you said, they keep on listening to those workers. They said they kept on reducing their hours, and now some used to do 40 hours are only doing 10 hours a week.
10 hours. And these are people that are not even, like, they've worked well over their 90 days. Yeah. They've been actually working for decades, for over a decade.
LifeWise,
These are not people that you don't treat, any place of work, shouldn't really treat your loyal workers that way. In this industry, home care work, that whole industry is an industry that we, as a church, so many of our own parishioners, so many of our own members rely on
the service provided by this home support workers.
Absolutely. And so it's an industry that should be and needs to be valued and recognized. I've never heard in this industry, of their employees being treated like that, and then having now being the threat of being locked out for 25 days.
I know. Really concerned. I mean, but it's funny because there are four main issues. Guaranteed hours. They really want guaranteed hours to make sure that the employer respect that. A
Yes.
new collective agreement, more sick leave days, and more bereavement leave days. But listening to
Yes.
those workers, Terito, I can tell that the main concern these workers have is the guaranteed hours. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yes, there are those other three issues, but that's not
Yeah.
the biggie. The biggie is the guaranteed hours because they won't be able to
Yeah.
feed their family. They won't be able to
That's
pay their
right.
rent, and that's what they want. But a Christian organization, just like what you say, oh, they're so passionate about dealing with homelessness. Bullshit. If you really,
Yeah.
you are by the sound of things, not by the sound of things, by the look of things, they are part of the problem. Because if
That's
they don't
right.
look after these workers will end up being homeless as well. And then they'll turn around and pretend like, oh, we are looking after the homeless. Bloody hell, no, deal
Of
with it in the
course, the
beginning first.
homelessness in the
Give
first
them the
place.
job, give them the hours to keep their
Yeah.
families, to pay their rent, put food on the table for their children. So talk about moral obligations here. Like, what happened to
Yes,
the Methodist Church? And
that's
and so
right.
I believe, have you reached out to other Methodist Church ministers, especially our Pacifica brothers?
We have.
So
Well, we've
what's
tried
the story?
to.
So what's going on? And so what is going on with it? Are our brothers hearing this, and our sisters who are in the
Well, I
Methodist
think
Church? Yeah.
there's been a few responses to Facebook tags and posts. I think in the coming week, especially now that the situation has escalated, I think it's to the point where we actually need to go and see face to face. We need to call people face to,
When you say people who are, you're talking about the decision makers
ministers,
within,
especially our Pacifica ministers. We've got Pacifica in our Methodist Church. We've got Pacifica ministers who are superintendents of parishes and synods. And if they are already aware of this, then how come
they're
there's
so
no
quiet. Yeah.
there's
Silent.
no noise? I think it's important for us to go and call them to account. Like, how do they carry on and just turn a blind eye to this? And I'm quite sure that some
They
of
know
these
what's going
workers
on.
are probably from their own parishes or from their
Oh,
own
yeah.
synods.
And some of these workers,
And
yes,
they're
you're so
not.
right. Yeah, because some of these workers are actually Methodist Church members.
That's right.
That's why they're so embarrassed and so angry that their
Yeah,
church is
and
actually treating them like
clients.
this as well. Yeah.
Even our clients, I have no doubt that within our own Methodist parishes and congregations, we've got clients, elderly who need the service, people who are relying on the service, particularly in central Auckland. And is this what we do? We treat the service providers, the employees, like this. It's not fair. It's not right. It wouldn't be right for a secular organisation to do that, and it certainly is not acceptable for a church one to do that too. It's just shocking, and so I think now we really have to go and engage face to face.
I think it's about time, that they stop. They need to stop having this double standard about caring about homelessness when actually, how about clean up your own backyard first before you try and look good to the media that I'm helping these people, the homelessness people. Deal with your workers first. Make
That's
sure
right.
that you give them guaranteed
That's right.
hours.
And if you can't afford to, or if you've got other ways, directions, then be open and transparent about it. I'm kind of a bit tired of hearing the same response through the media and even through generic emails that they're observing.
Observing is not going to solve the problem.
What's the question? What's the thing? They're observing privacy and confidentiality, so they don't want to respond to. This is LifeWise I'm talking about. It's not good enough, because you can tell that people are are desperate. You've got workers who are picketing and going on strike. That people don't choose to do that naturally for fun. People do that because it's desperate times and they're fed up and frustrated with the processes that have gone through so far. And so, it's certainly not pastoral, and to think that it comes from any church, let alone to think that it comes from your own church.
So what's your comment to our viewers or our listeners who are listening tonight, and they belong to the Methodist Church, or they know somebody who is in the Methodist Church and make decision? What would you like to what kind
the word, let people know, don't keep quiet about it, and don't turn a blind eye. Write emails, write to whoever it is that ask them to challenge, bring it up, take it up to their superintendent, or to whoever it is that's above them, and challenge and spread the word. I think one of the things that probably was overlooked was the power, especially within our Pacifica communities. I think that once
when you look at the structure, Terito, so who are our Pacifica ministers or whoever that sits right up there on the decision-making level that people should be aware of? They know that person, to talk to that person, then the next person, and who have we got in mind?
I suppose leadership is a bit of a web when it comes to this particular organisation, just like any.
Yeah.
But certainly, I think you've got our vice president of our Methodist Church of New Zealand is a Tongan, astute man who's very much engaged in the community. Vice President Edwin Talakai.
So it's Edwin Talakai, Vice President, eh? Edwin Talakai. There you go, people. If you know him,
any seers, you've got Pacifica ministers who are in the know. Our church is not so big and so far apart that people don't know each other and people aren't unable to contact you. Any minister could bring it up to whoever their heads are. Any person, it doesn't even have to be from within the church, anybody can write letters of concern or complaint to our heads, our head offices in Christchurch, just raising the concern and namely making sure that this issue is not just overlooked or our heads are not turned the other way. I think we're slowly becoming more and more aware of the situation and the way that it's escalated and gotten worse.
And locking them out for 2 weeks.
It's gotten worse. You'd think usually, like before Christmas, I think I saw that post just on Christmas Eve that you had shared, fellow, on your Facebook. And I had reshared it, and I kind of hoped, okay, maybe it's just because people are, away, or maybe it's just something that will hopefully get better over the week. And it didn't. And then come now on, the middle of January, the situation hasn't even gotten better at all. It's gotten worse. The workers are facing a lockout. And so now it's time to share and make sure that people are aware and talking about it and challenging and,
And I think there's another thing too, Terito, because it's quite misleading, because they say that they wanted to go to mediation, but the reality, the truth is that the union is the one who wanted to go to mediation and sort this out, but they refused to do it. And now they're turning around and pretend that they are the one who wanted to go to mediation by the union, but actually it's the other way around.
The other way around.
A Christian organization. Oh my gosh, really? Oh my gosh, this is really funny. I mean, as a Christian, I find it very, 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 very difficult to believe that it's to a Christian organization that they are really, spewing all these things out and not treating their workers well. and
Yeah.
then
And I
putting
know,
out all the
I know
misinformation.
hand on heart
Mm-hmm.
that there are many within our own church, within the church's side of things, not the mission, the ministry side of things, that, are unaware of the situation and the way that things have gotten so bad, the way that things have gone so horribly
Yeah.
wrong. And so we need to keep those
So
people in the loop.
these workers are going to be locked out starting next week, and they
Uh,
are looking. They have given the union the notice to say that they are looking at either 2 weeks, or who knows, it might
yeah.
even say the 25 days. So this is where we really need the
Yeah.
community to make sure they come on board and support
Yeah,
the
we
Methodist
need to.
Methodist church member listening,
Mm,
or somebody who is a leader in the
yeah,
Methodist church. Please, these workers really need your support. All what they
that's
want
right.
is guaranteed hours, because at the moment
Mm,
some of them used to have 40 hours and now it's gone down to 10 hours. Okay, even though they have been promised that they will get more hours,
mm.
and then more sick leave days and more bereavement leave days, and their first collective agreement. That's all what they're after.
Yeah.
They're not asking for the sky or
Those are
anything
basic
to go to the
needs. Those are
islands to a
basic
holiday
things.
or something. But
Yeah,
most
that's
of these
right.
mothers are Pacifica mothers, and the Maori and our migrant workers. I mean, we're all migrants, but I'm talking about Filipino and all those other ethnic groups. So yeah, and what they're asking is support from our community, because that's what the company is looking at. It's locking them out, so they don't have to turn up to. They don't have to when they want to come into work, because at the moment that's what they do. They turn up to work, and then they decided to go on strike or have a picket for 1 hour or 2 hours. But now the company is saying, now we are going to lock you out if you turn up to work. There's not going to be. We're not going to give you a job anymore. So that's where we are. And they really need your support. Am I right, Terito?
That's right. That's right. They do. They need all of us to support them, to share this information with our networks and with the people around us, so that people know and are aware of this. And it's not getting any better. It's exacerbating.
Yeah.
So we need to be vocal. We need to challenge and hold LifeWise to account.
Exactly. Especially their CEO, who is very good in going and support the homelessness, and but not
Or
very good
talking
in
about it anyway.
looking after her workers. So yeah, so that's where we are, and we really appreciate your time tonight, Terito. And
Thank you for all you're doing.
looking forward to more updates from next Saturday to see. Let's hope and pray that things will get better instead of getting worse. Okay. But thank you.
Okay.
We really appreciate your ongoing support for the workers, and and God bless my beautiful niece from Rotuma and the Cook Islands.
Okay. God bless. Thank you, Auntie Fala.
Thank you. We really appreciate you making time tonight. And let's continue to support not just the LifeWise workers, but all our workers out there who really need justice, that we make sure that we don't shut our mouths, but get up and say, call it as it is when you sit, because it's about our own family. And if we don't say anything, can you imagine what's going to happen next? Okay, it's our job to make sure that we support workers. Okay, hey, once again, have a lovely evening, Terito, and thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah. Okay, fa. Okay, go Terito there.